Hello, welcome back to the world yet again. In this episode, I'm gonna be doing a few different things. Because frankly, I started off with the goal of building an apiary to put all my bees in, because I have a bunch of bees, but I just have them in like a tiny room in my house, which is not effective or fun for the bees, so that was the original goal, but I end up doing a lot of other stuff first, so I'm not even sure that the apiary is going to be in this episode. The first thing I decided I want to give a shot at building was a nether tree farm. This was a funky build, not because of anything about the build itself, mostly because I decided to build it before I really had a good source of bone meal, so it's gonna be really hard to run it, but I decided to build it anyway. And with most things it seems like I've been building recently, I apparently need a bit of sand for this, specifically for glass. And also, seemingly with everything that I've been building recently, I also needed to head back down to get more redstone, because it seems like I can never quite get enough of that. And then of course I made a good ol' ore tower and mined it down with the fortune pickaxe, because frankly, it's just a lot of fun to do. There's no real reason to do this instead of just bringing the fortune pickaxe into the mines with me, besides for I think it's fun. So yeah. I had the realization that I kinda need coral for this though, which means I need to go exploring because I don't know where any worm oceans are, let alone coral. After running off in a random direction, I quickly found a nether portal, which I hoped was good luck. After sleeping in a bed I found in a random village, I decided to do some swimming because I was too lazy to make a boat, and also cannot stop myself from jumping into any water while exploring. But luckily it led me to find a mesa, which is a warm biome, so it might help me find a warm ocean. And since I found a desert and a mesa, that means I can finally get some cactus, which means at some point I can make a nightmarishly large cactus farm, which I can almost guarantee will happen at some point. Luckily for me, there's an ocean like right behind this mesa, and I can tell at least part of it is a warm ocean with some coral in it, so this was actually a surprisingly short journey. So I'm just gonna collect a few coral fans because that's really all I need, and then I'll leave for now. Probably gonna make another portal to here in the future though, because it has a few things that I cannot get easily. I put a couple of the coral fans in this shulker box for the tree farm thingy, and all of the rest of them are going in the valuables chest because I only have a limited amount at the moment. And since I have all of the stuff here, I'm gonna make the tree farm, but I have a grand total of 0 idea how this thing works or functions, so I'm just gonna speed through that. I then quickly realize I do not have the bone meal to run this thing for even half a second, so I'm gonna pretend it doesn't exist until I do. Nice. And weirdly enough, the next farm I'm making is a bone meal farm. Wonder why that is. First things first, we need to make a very long platform, and by platform, it's just like a long stretch of dirt. But since I'm on a very hilly area, I had to, make it that way, and they specified very specific dimensions, but I'm pretty sure you could make it pretty much however length you want. But I don't know. Maybe there's something very special about that length. But I highly doubt it. And other than that, it's mostly just planting the pumpkins and or melons. I did both because I'm sometimes using this as a pumpkin and melon farm. At least that is the plan. But on top of that, there's also going to be the flying machine, which basically just pushes hopper minecarts back and forth to collect our pumpkins and melons. And other than that, I think everything else is just waiting for the plants to actually grow, and also getting a couple pumpkin seeds, because I did not get enough of those. So yeah, just wait for that. And other than that, this farm is pretty simple. The only real problem with that is that since I planted some of them, but not all of them, they had a bit of a tendency to grow where the others were supposed to be, which meant I had to run through, break a bunch of stuff to replant where they were supposed to be, but that's kinda my own fault. And other than that, this was a really simple farm to make, and I'd probably recommend making one because as far as melon and pumpkin-based bone meal farms go, this one is pretty good and relatively cheap. And other than that, I basically just added a fence, which was to keep mobs out so that they did not get in the way of the flying machine and mess up the hopper minecarts. But as you can see, the flying machine just sort of goes over, breaks all the pumpkins and melons, and the hopper minecarts pick it up, so that when it returns to its normal station, it goes into the hoppers underneath where the hopper minecarts will lay, which will either compost them or put them directly into the storage, depending on what I have under the hoppers. I'm kinda wishing I did a replay mod shot of this thing going, because I think it would be kinda interesting to just see the hopper minecart flying machine just go back and forth over and over again, but that might just be me, but who knows. Maybe it would be interesting. Next things next, I needed a lot of sand, because for that apiary I wanted to build, I needed like 2,500 blocks of sand, and I just do not have the ability to do that right now. Like, I could go down to the desert where I got the coral from, but frankly, I don't want to walk all that way multiple times to get that much sand. So instead, I'm gonna head over to the end portal and make myself a sand duper, because that seems like a lot more fun. And after about 20 minutes of flailing around trying to figure out where the end portal was, I finally found my original tunnel down to the stronghold. It took me a lot longer to find it than I was expecting, but we got there in the end, so it doesn't matter too much. But to avoid such confusion in the future, I tower up with some cobblestone to make one of those corkscrew-shaped towers I have, kinda like where I have at the spider farm, to just make it a lot more obvious where it is, and also to just have a staircase all the way down to the end portal, because that is much more convenient than flailing around for 20 minutes trying to figure out where it is. And after setting up that staircase, I headed back home to grab some materials for the duper itself. And of course, that required me to go down and grab redstone again, because, like I said, can't ever have enough of that, because I always am running out. Like every episode, I think. And just to note right here, this was the time that I, for some reason, decided I needed to make a random nether portal on the roof. I don't know why I needed to do that, but I now have a portal on the nether roof that is out in the middle of nowhere, because I did not set coordinates for it or anything. And I don't know why I did this, but apparently I did. Good for me, question mark. But after making my way home from that, I got my shulker box full of things and headed off to the end portal to make the sand duper. Now, if you've never made a sand duper or watched anybody make a sand duper before, A, that's kinda surprising. They're pretty common. But B, the simple gist of it is that you get some pistons to throw sand, or really whatever gravity block you want, into the end portal, which you have to use a red mushroom to break the end portal frames, because that makes sense. And for some reason, the way that the pistons throw the sand or gravity blocks at it makes it duplicate. I don't really understand the mechanics of how that works, but it gets me free sand, and I don't have to dig out an entire desert, so I'll take it. Next up is the chunk loader, because chunk loaders are actually completely necessary for this, which is fun, because chunk loaders are kinda weird. Basically, you have dispensers to basically shoot items in and out of a nether portal to keep both sides loaded forever. I'm pretty sure it's because when you throw an item through, it makes the other side loaded for just long enough that it can shoot it back through and load the other side, and back and forth, so that both sides are constantly loaded. Now, the first chunk loader design I tried to use was the one that was in the tutorial that I'm following by Shulkercraft for the entire sand duper machine. The only problem is it didn't work, and I don't know why, so instead I did a much simpler design by Ilmango, and the only problem is that design required a 3-wide portal, but since my portal decided to spawn itself over a massive pit of lava, it was fine. I had plenty of obsidian to do so. And after that, all there was left to do was turn on the sand duper thingies and head on into the end. As you can see, there's sand coming through on this side, just over and over again, which is collected by the hoppers and goes directly down into the chests. And that's really it. So I just sat here and AFK'd for a while to collect some sand so that I could use it later for the apiary. And after going home to grab my shulker boxes, I filled them all up with the pretty decent amount of sand that I collected. Also, if you didn't notice, at some point I did add some gravel to the sand duper, because that will also come in handy later if I decide to build something with concrete, and most likely that will happen at some point, so yeah. Good to have some gravel on standby. But with the sand farm now built, I'm actually going to start working to get all of the different materials I'm going to need for the apiary, which is a lot of different things, and in pretty large quantities, but it'll be fine. And the first thing I collect a lot of is orange dye, because I decided to make all of the glass in the apiary orange, because I thought it fit the sort of bee theme. So yeah, need a lot of orange dye. I also started realizing around this point that the 2-furnace smelter I have might not be fast enough for the amount of glass I need to make. And so I made a 16-furnace array, which should be able to get me all that glass smelted in pretty small amount of time, relatively speaking. And after that, I was going to need a lot of azalea leaves, both normal and flowering, which means it's time to plant a bunch of azalea and shear them, because that's really the only way to get a large amount of azalea leaves. Luckily, that's not very hard work. It just took a little while, especially when I was starting, because I wasn't doing it very efficiently, trying to shear an entire tree before moving on to the next one, instead of just walking through the center where there were a ton of leaves and taking all of those. But eventually I did figure out that you could just sort of walk through the middle and get leaves from all the trees all at once, which was much faster. Or at the very least it felt faster. It might not have been all that much faster, but it definitely felt like it was. Now, the thing I decided to collect after that was dark oak logs, and while I'd love to go through each ingredient one by one, that would take quite a while, because as you can see, there's a lot of different materials in this thing, most of which are in pretty large quantities. So I think I'm just going to skip to starting to build, especially since we're at around 15 minutes, so I think it's a good time to get near the end and start working on stuff, but if important stuff happens, I'll let you know. And, something important ended up happening sooner than I would have liked. See, I was spelunking without any torches because I'm not very smart and I'm also kinda lazy, and while I was in an unfamiliar cave, I found some less than friendly skeletons waiting for me. The first one was kinda rude, got me down pretty low on health, and I have, just to note, I have my Fortune Netherite pickaxe and a shulker box on me. So this first skeleton hit me around a little bit, but I was mostly fine. After that, though, there was another skeleton, and of course, being the smart person I am, I did not eat potatoes or try to heal before fighting this skeleton, so I was already halfway dead when this skeleton showed up, but I was good enough that I managed to kill them. But then another skeleton showed up, and I died. And since that whole time I had decided to spelunk without torches, it became very difficult to get back to where I was, mostly because I had no idea where I was when I died. It became a bit of an issue, because I just could not, for the life of me, remember where I was when I died. And to take out my rage, I kinda went outside to fight off some enemies that were getting a little too close to my house, and I almost died again, but we don't have to talk about that. Let's just get back to the apiary, because it's less sad. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a new fortune pickaxe now, which is kinda sad. But eventually I did manage to collect all the materials I needed, and I ended up getting my redstone from villagers because it was a lot less dangerous that way. And I didn't much feel like dying down in the mines again because I didn't show it, but I definitely did die like 3 more times trying to get redstone, and it was getting very annoying at that point, to say the least, so I just decided villagers are superior in every way to mining. So yeah. But anyway, I got some replay footage for the overhead view of building the apiary, so let's move to that. Unfortunately, this time-lapse is being cut in half because, well, we kinda ran into an issue with the Girl Scouts. I walked out and they were trying very hard to sell me their crossbow bolt flavored cookies. I wasn't a huge fan of that type though, unfortunately. And for some reason, when I kindly asked them to leave, they decided to call the entire brigade of the Girl Scout Union to come to my front door. I was not a fan of this, and I don't think they were either, because they seemed very upset about this. The first reinforcements that showed up were pretty much just another group of peddlers trying to get me to buy their crossbow flavored cookies. Like, guys, I'm not interested. So of course, I very kindly asked them to leave. This was, however, apparently unacceptable, and they came back again with some of their council members or whatever to give me axe-flavored cookies as well. Like, those are even worse than the crossbow-flavored cookies. I'm not that interested. And after, honestly, a little less politely, giving back one of their axe-flavored cookies, they decided to bring out the mascot, which was kinda spooky, honestly, and was just kinda charging me a bunch, and I was not the most happy with it. So I, of course, very politely asked it to leave. I didn't kill it, I promise. Stop coming into my house, Girl Scouts. I didn't do it. But, of course, it's never enough for the Girl Scouts, so they brought another group of people. This guy was riding the mascot, which, okay, you do you, I guess. There was also, I think, one of their, like, leaders or whatever, trying to do some hoodoo voodoo in my house. These ladies tried to give me drinks. I'm honestly, like, very confused, though, because the hoodoo voodoo guy was summoning, like, ghost cookies? I don't know, they kind of look like fairies, and I'm definitely not a fan of those. Like, come on, dude. Those things are alive, moving, and have their own cookies they're trying to sell. I can't eat that, even if they tasted good, which, considering your record, they probably don't. My friend, I also do not want cookies that are trying to eat me back. That also sounds highly unpleasant. The leader was apparently upset I told them to leave, considering they brought more leaders and also a pack of zombies. Like, why do the Girl Scouts have a pack of zombies? That's kinda weird, not gonna lie. I also want to point out that the leaders were dropping little dolls that kinda look like me. So I think I have a full right to be rude at this point, because that's wildly creepy. Eventually, me and the Iron Golem buddies managed to tell off all of the wayward Girl Scouts, and eventually, they all left, which me and the villagers were very happy about, to the point where the villagers decided that I was the hero of the village. To which I responded, there is no village yet, you are literally trapped inside of a box, but thank you anyway. But with that strange social interaction dealt with, I think it is now safe to say that we can finish the apiary. So let's get back to that. Well, as it turns out, there wasn't a whole lot left of that to do after all that, so that is the apiary basically finished. Don't mention the wooden logs right there that I totally missed, or the fact that I do not have any beehives in it yet. I will get to that, I promise. Next episode though, because, Girl Scouts are scary. But yeah, if you couldn't tell from that, that's probably going to be the end of the episode for now, because I think I've done quite a bit this episode, considering I've made a few farms and this whole apiary, which is definitely the biggest building I've built so far. The apiary is here for both honey and honeycomb, because since I have a chest up here, which I will fill with bottles, which will be used to get a bunch of honey bottles so that I can make honey blocks when that becomes important, which eventually it will. And then up here behind these trapdoors, I have another chest, which I'm going to fill with shears so that I can also get honeycomb at the same time. But anyway, with that, that'll be the end of the episode, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye-bye!